Welcome, listeners, to another fabulous podcast. Now, today's guest is Kylie Rook. I met Kylie as a yoga instructor about 10 years ago, and I loved practicing with her because her knowledge goes deep. Now I know why, and it's such a privilege to have her joining us here. Now, Kylie is not only a yoga, medicine, therapeutic specialist and advanced teacher trainer, but also a practitioner trained in a number of complementary modalities that truly enrich her yoga practice. So that knowledge she just continues to develop. And right now she's studying more, this time Hakomi somatic psychotherapy. She'll correct me if I'm wrong. Kylie's professional journey actually began in nursing, though, and that really set her up with this fascination of the human body and movement and health and wellness. So she's no stranger to personal struggles and mental health, as so many of us are. But this really led her to delve deeply into the neuroscience and the therapeutic benefits of certain yogic practices like pranayama or breathwork, which we're going to focus on today. And in 2020, Kylie launched an online course called Why Breathing Matters. So it's got a really strong intention in there to debunk common myths and misconceptions about breathing, something so simple, right? So I'm going to put a link in the show notes so you can check it out. But for now, let's hear more from this incredible woman. It's lovely to have you here. Welcome, Kylie.
Oh, thank you, Brenda. That was a lovely introduction. Yeah, it's Hakomi. So,
Hakomi,
yeah,
thank you.
no problem.
Well, I'm really keen. I know we've heard a little bit about what led you to be doing the work you're doing now, but how would you summarize, or what would you want to share with the listeners about what led you to particularly study and embrace a breathwork practice?
Yeah, so I mean, my yoga journey began probably 26 odd years ago. And so by the time I had decided to become a teacher, I'd already been practicing probably about 10 years. And so at that point in time, I thought I had pretty good handle of breathing. I was doing breathing every day on my mat. And when I did my teacher training, I actually got a back injury. And through the process of rehabbing that, I actually realized that I didn't have a very good handle on how to breathe. And I did what a lot of people do, which is to hold my lower belly in and keep it held in, which then disrupts your breathing mechanics. It disrupts the movement of the diaphragm and the pelvic floor. So you tend to be more of an upper chest breather, which leads to higher states of arousal or anxiety, stress. And in terms of core stabilization, it disrupts our inner unit, which is really the foundation for core stability. So that led me on a journey of learning how to breathe, learning how to relax my belly, learning how to get a fuller breath. And I started to incorporate a lot of chanting at that time because it was enabling me to actually feel the exhale and hear the exhale. And also the chanting helps to stimulate the vagus nerve, because of where it runs through the back of the throat and aligning with your voice box. And so that just helped to also tone down my nervous system, bring me more into that parasympathetic branch, which then enabled me to, work on the breath, work on relaxation, work on body awareness a lot more.
Yeah, wow. And with the chanting, one of the things that I noticed, and I'd love your take on this, is when I put my hand, around my heart and I'm talking, so i.e. chanting, there's a vibration, and I just feel like it brings us back to our heart. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And I think that's why I really loved it. Initially I was really like, a bit afraid of the chanting. And part of that was like my own story around, I'm not a singer, I'm no good at singing, I don't want, people to hear my voice. But once I got over that story and actually just started to embrace it, it was just this really beautiful way of connecting me to the present moment, connecting to sensation in the body, like really feeling that vibration. And you can kind of sit in the echo of the vibration afterwards. And it's just this beautiful, calming, almost like a little rock rocking yourself to
Mm.
sleep almost. So
Yeah, it's like when we do the Om right at the end of a yoga practice or at the beginning. And I know I can relate to that. I'm quite quiet
yeah.
when I do it. It's like, but then the teacher comes in and people join in and you become a little bit more confident. And the feeling in the room afterwards is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really palpable. So that was kind of my inroad into helping my breathing actually become a little bit more regulated. And in particular, helping that exhalation, because a lot of us actually struggle
Mm.
to let go, to exhale, and to exhale long enough. So,
Yeah, and it's fascinating because I'm thinking, I talked to you at the beginning before this around how I had a tiny wee operation, and I just made myself a little note about relaxing my belly. I didn't even think about being more conscious of how I was breathing right now. I'm holding tension in my belly because I'm nervous about moving the wrong way and feeling a bit of pain. Wow.
yeah, and that's often what happens. Like we might experience, some sort of pain or surgery or whatever, and then that sets up a pattern of bracing. Or for some of us, it might be, when we're younger, we get a fright, and that sets us up in a pattern of like holding and bracing, and then our breath becomes shallower. Or we grow up, and like I grew up dancing, and so it was always like suck your belly in, hold your belly tight. Also, as women, we have that kind of societal pressure to have a flat tummy, and like and
I gave up on that a while ago.
yeah, and so there's all of this kind of like outside, influence, but actually our breathing mechanics work best when the belly is soft and is able to just move in conjunction with the diaphragm. So
Oh, there you go, ladies. Let it all out. Relax that belly. Oh, wow. And I teach a lot about self-awareness, and I know you do too. So, how would you explain the connection between breath work and really heightening our self-awareness? What comes to mind?
yeah, well, so with breathing, so the inhale is linked very much to your sympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is a lot to do with thoughts and rumination and worry. It's, what gets us, doing things. My meditation teacher used to say it's the stinking thinking. Whereas the exhale is linked to the parasympathetic nervous system. And so that's more the feeling, sensing part of the body and that ability to drop into present moment awareness. So when we practice breath work, we're, kind of dancing between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, but particularly when we're exhaling for a little bit longer, it's bringing us more in touch with the parasympathetic nervous system and that state of being really present in our bodies right here, right now. And, like if things are going crazy around you, the best thing to do is just bring awareness to your breath and it automatically drops you into this moment.
Wow, I do it a lot when I'm flying. I don't think I'm unique to be a little bit of a nervous flyer when that lovely turbulence happens. And
Mm-hmm.
I do that breathing out for longer because it really relaxes me, but I didn't realize exactly what was happening. This is fabulous.
Mm.
Yeah, wow. And what about and this is all lined up really the whole idea of emotional regulation. Now, I work a lot with leaders and it's really important to have a little tool in your toolkit to be able to regulate emotions because otherwise we find ourselves saying or doing things that we really wish we hadn't. So given that this, is about 5 a.m. Tuesday and making better choices, how can breathwork influence that emotional regulation and lead to better choices?
Yeah, well, the first thing is like rather than going straight into reacting, it's that moment to pause and just come back to the breath. And just by bringing mindfulness to the breath, already starts to flip us more into the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. We'll already start to slow down our breathing. And then that just gives us that moment to actually respond rather than react. And often
Mm,
what happens is, something happens, somebody cuts us off on the motorway, for instance, and we go straight into reaction. Whereas if you take that moment just to pause, then it's a response that comes. And usually that response is less reactive and is actually more from a place of compassion and empathy and actually,
mm.
walking in another's shoes almost.
Yeah. Oh, we so speak the same language. We really do. And, Viktor Frankl, I know you won't be a stranger to his saying between stimulus and response, there is a space. And
Yeah.
I always say that space is the pause. And, like we're hearing here, breath. And thank you for making us more aware of the parasympathetic nervous system and giving those things a bit of a scientific label that we can connect with about what's actually happening.
Yeah.
No. And I'm really excited about sharing your course in the show notes, the Why Breathing Matters, because it's definitely something I'll jump on and do myself.
Mm.
What about a few specific techniques that listeners can actually try? What do you suggest?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a big believer because there's a lot of breath work stuff out there. And I tend to think, first of all, what we need to find is like a relaxed breath and that ability to self-regulate. And what I mean by that is that ability to come back to baseline. So, there's a lot of breathing practices that are very stimulating to the nervous system. They bring us into that heightened arousal state. What's good about them is that it gives us that chance to practice being in a stressed environment and then how we come back to baseline. But if you are new to breathing practices, we need to find that baseline first. We need to find
Mm,
what it feels like to be relaxed. So
mm,
the breathing techniques that I usually get people to start with is either like a simple box breathing. So it could be inhaling for 4, pausing the breath for 4, exhaling for 4, and then pausing for 4. And so the pause at the top and the bottom helps to extend the length of the breath, but also the pause, which in yoga we call it the kumbhaka or the breath retention, it helps to increase nitric oxide within the body. And that nitric oxide helps to decrease our blood pressure and decrease our heart rate. So again, it has that calming effect. So that would be one of the first ones. That or humming breath, which is where you hum for the length of your exhale. Nice, simple one. It's a really good one to do if you're struggling to sleep at night. So you can just lie in bed, breathe in, and then hum for the full length of your exhale. And you just keep doing that until you probably will just drift off to sleep. Um, or
wow.
you know, do 10 rounds if you like, if you need an amount to do. And then once you've sort of got a handle of that, then you can start to play with the ratios. So for instance, the box breathing could become more of an unequal ratio where you inhale for 4, hold for 6, and exhale for 10.
Mm,
Maybe hold for 2 at the bottom. So the breath retentions are a little longer. So you just want to make sure that you're not in that stressed state when you're holding the breath. And that's often what happens is people launch into kind of advanced pranayama practices and they're actually bringing more stress into the system without actually learning how to kind of dance between the two states, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So
mm.
start with the simpler ones. If 4 counts as too much, you just make it shorter, or you just count a little faster. Like instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe you're 1, 2, 3, 4. So you just make it so that it's achievable and not stressful for your system.
Well, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. I love the humming breath, and I've spoken to many people who come and go with sleeping challenges. So I am trying that one. I love it, and I really appreciate you, like I said, giving some labels. Talking about the nitric oxide. It's like I knew what was actually happening from a feeling perspective, but to be able to really understand a little bit more about the science, but you're saying it in a way that we can really understand, which is great. I mean, what would you say to someone who's either skeptical or feeling like they can't do this
Oh,
for whatever reason?
yeah. I guess the place to start would just be to bring mindfulness to your breath.
Mm,
Just notice just in doing that, the shift and how you're
mm,
feeling. Because sometimes
mm.
it is a little bit scary playing with the breath or, adjusting the breath. And we don't know until we try, right? So it's like, notice how you're feeling, spend a few moments noticing your breath and bringing mindfulness to the breath, and then see how you feel afterwards and notice if there's a state change. And then Usually there will be, because just in that mindfulness moment of, watching the breath, everything will kind of calm down a little. The thoughts will start to dissipate. There'll be a little bit more space, a little bit more clarity. And then you can kind of go, oh yeah, I do feel a difference.
And that's what we wish for everyone, right? That they just feel it, because then you'll do it. It's a bit like me with the humming breath. I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah.
So apart from putting the link into your course, I mean, can you tell us anything more about that and why it would be beneficial to do it?
So that course, basically, we go through the breathing mechanics and breathing physiology, which I think a lot of people don't know. Like, a lot of people think they have to get more oxygen in, and that's what breathing is about. But it's actually not. It's about maintaining your carbon dioxide levels in your bloodstream. And so often what we need to do is breathe less. And that's, one of the things that people are often mind blown by. They're like, what? We need to breathe less? But I thought I needed more. But yeah, it's actually breathing less, maintaining that carbon dioxide level. We go through the breathing mechanics of what's actually happening in the diaphragm, the pelvic floor, the inner unit. And then I take you through some practices that help to stimulate the vagus nerve. And there's a couple of movement practices in there. One is around trying to find relaxation in the body and what that feels like, and then what your breath is like when you are relaxed. And then the other one is a movement practice where you can start to feel how your breathing affects things like core stabilization.
And I know when I practice yoga with you on your wonderful online sessions, which I highly recommend, listeners, you will often have us change our breathing around. So where we're breathing in for half the pose and then out, you say, now turn it around and breathe out for that first part and in. And it's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And, part of that is because we get into habits with our breathing. And so some of those habits are beneficial, but oftentimes they're not so beneficial. And so the best thing that we can do with the breath is to be forever changing it. So we're never getting, again, in that braced, stuck position. The other thing with the breath is that a lot of the way that we're cued to breathe is actually contrary to how our body would naturally breathe to find stabilization.
Wow.
So yeah, that's part of why I do that, so that you can experience what it feels like to breathe a different way, and whether that brings perhaps more stabilization, how that changes your experience of the pose. Because unfortunately, most of us grow up learning different ways to breathe and being told how to breathe, but not actually connecting to what it feels like to use the breath to stabilize.
Yeah, wow. You know what, listeners, if you would like to enjoy more of Kylie's 26 years of study and experience and teaching, I've certainly experienced it. And like I said, right at the front, I enjoy practicing with you because I experience, I feel, I sense your depth of knowledge and care for us. So yeah, I'll definitely put the links in there. Do you have any final words of wisdom for our beautiful listeners?
Any final words of wisdom? Probably just to take regular breaks, well, not even breaks, just regular pauses throughout your day to notice your breath.
Yeah, put some thought into it, people. Yeah.
Simple awareness is key to really changing.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Kylie. I'm sure there's more we could talk about, so we might have you back on again. But I really look forward to the feedback we get from this. Such a simple thing that we do every moment of every day, but can have such a beautiful, positive impact on how our days play out.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you.